Yeah, the realization came over time of, okay, man, like if I'm going to sustain this, I'm a father now, I have 2 children, trying to not burn out as we all are. But I also want to maintain that quality.
I certainly know everyone at some point runs into a wall.
The clarity that you can get of like, oh, I know what to do now. This is giving me a jumping off point. That, if I would have killed for that.
And it's not so much important as just rely on AI to do your job. It's more so leaning on them when you need them for support.
It kind of started morphing into, hey, I think this could really help people.
I mean, what would you do with an extra 10 hours a week? You know what I mean?
That's huge. Over the course of a season?
Is AI actually a threat to wedding filmmakers? Or is the real threat time, exhaustion, and decision fatigue? The pressure to create these perfect films on this impossible timeline. You know, every filmmaker wants to tell a better story, but no one really talks about how hard it is and difficult it can be to find the story in the chaos of a wedding day. The pressure to perform, it's real. The hours spent sorting through footage, the overwhelm staring at the empty timeline, it can be incredibly intimidating, which is why these tools exist. But for many, they're hesitant because they feel like it's cheating or you're taking a shortcut when it comes to creating art. But in my opinion, AI isn't the real enemy here. The real enemy is time. It's limited energy throughout the day, and it's the growing distractions in an over-consuming world. So today I sit down with Maclean from Plotline to dive deeper into a bigger discussion around AI tools for wedding filmmakers. Demystifying the stigma, unpacking the truth. Is AI a foe or is it a friend? And are we letting fear of using these tools stop us from telling better stories? Because the only way AI could ever really replace you is if you let it.
I think all creatives, rightfully so, have a hesitation towards AI, especially what we've seen online, like the advancements that have come are kind of bananas. Like when you see, especially generative AI, like creating something out of a prompt alone is wild to see. And that, I think rightfully so, that there are concerns. And I am one of those people that holds those concerns. However, when it comes to aiding my process or speeding things up or freeing me up to do things that are more what I like to focus on, like the actual creative part, I think it's a wonderful tool. Like I defy anyone to try using any sort of productivity approach to AI, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this saves me so much time. So if we can free up ourselves creatively, I think that's a wonderfully powerful thing. And so with my, experience, I guess, or my path with AI has been very much focused on that. How can I make something or have something that frees up me and my time to be less burdened by the technical stuff?
I'm with you there because I feel like most filmmakers and most creatives in general, they don't lack ideas. It's really just that battle of time. You know, we're constantly searching for energy and oftentimes that clear path forward, especially within like the editing process. So I'd love to just kind of hear more about like your experience, like what, you've kind of gone through as a creative, as a filmmaker over the last, decade-long journey you've been doing this. Talk about more about the friction that you experience as like a wedding filmmaker, when you're diving into the creative process, the editing process, and how like Plotline like solves that friction.
Definitely. Yeah. So like I've been doing this, for pushing 2 decades now, which is wild. And at the start, so for those that don't know, I am one half of Hello Tomorrow Films out of Vancouver, Canada. And it's my wife and I, and we've been doing this for a long time. And from the jump, from when we started, I was like, I had this grand vision of, Erin's going to be, my wife, Erin, will be an assistant editor to me. She can kind of assemble things and I can just sit down and get to the creative part. And then realistically, that never happened. She had zero interest in editing. She loved shooting, zero interest in editing. So the reality hit me quick of, either I got to find someone else or I got to do this on my own. And then the more the time went on, the more I realized, especially with the focus on storytelling, which is what I'm most interested in and passionate about, it became a reality that and that I am a control freak and I want to make sure I have my hands on the full control of how the story turns out in the edit. So that's how I approached it for our entire career. I've been the sole editor. We've messed around with outsourcing, but if we ever have, it's only been for doc edits or real-time edits. But for highlight films, it's been entirely myself. And I just found myself, while it being extremely rewarding and enjoyable, sometimes not in the moment, as I'm sure every editor here can relate to. I love having edited, that kind of feeling, versus I love the actual steps of editing. Sometimes it's, frustrating because you care so much. But the realization came over time of, okay, man, if I'm going to sustain this, I'm a father now, I have 2 children. I'm trying to not burn out, as we all are, but I also want to maintain that quality. So as AI was kind of coming up, I was like, oh man, wouldn't that be cool if there was something that could kind of streamline parts of the process for me, whatever it is. I would look at photographers and hear photographer friends talk about, oh yeah, we have this program that, culls for us or does a lot of this process for us and speeds things up. And I'm already envious of the photography workflow in weddings as it is, because man, that's from a business perspective, a better call. but so I was like, oh, that'd be cool. And if something like that existed, waited around to see if something like that was going to happen. And in the meantime, started poking around of, what could be done. I don't have a coding background or anything like that, but I started messing around with, okay, what if we could make something that, took the dialogue of a wedding and could transcribe it and start telling me, oh, what's a strong thing here? Or what's the, kind of asking questions like that. And then it kind of morphed into, oh, I see, this could be actually a tool that would maybe give people like a rough draft or a starting point for how their script, for lack of a better term, should look. And that was kind of the early days of Plotline, thinking about it like that. And so that was a little under a year ago. And it kind of started morphing into, hey, I think this could really help people, because I've been doing this for this long. It's helped me tremendously. And it's been even in the idea of I don't know, some people may see Plotline and look at it like, oh, it just does the edit for you. That's not great. I would agree. It's more of a, hey, this is what we think is a strong story point based on all of our storytelling expertise, us, Hello Tomorrow, and all of our experience. But at the same time, it's not going to be, it should be unique to the filmmaker. So you should find out fast if you like what it's given you or not, and then change from there. So it's kind of like, here's an idea for a rough draft. You know what? I don't like this. I'm going to change this immediately. But the idea of kind of, for lack of a better term, failing faster, I think is a huge time saver, because you find out what you do or don't like as quickly as possible.
I love that answer. And I feel like the key word there is, one thing you said was sustaining. And I feel like anybody that does this long term, you got to build out some systems that work for you and use tools that can help you be more efficient. And if outsourcing isn't a journey that you feel is right for you, using tools like this can certainly just help you and save those precious hours. Another great way to save those precious hours during the busy wedding seasons, during those times where you're starting to feel a little bit stressed, the pressure is getting to you, you're running out of fuel, and you just need some support. That's where outsourcing can be a huge benefit for you. And I have the perfect team. I've been using Uncut Gems for the last 2 years at this point, and they have been absolutely incredible in saving me time, giving me quality films, and helping me push past those seasons of burnout. And if you're on the fence about outsourcing, Uncut Gems has been kind enough to offer you guys 65% off on your first edit. They make it super simple to get started, send in your films right away, so that you can just kick back, relax, and let them take care of everything. So head over to Uncut Gems. I'll have a link down in the show notes below so that you can kick back, log in the face, and get back to just being excited about your business. I certainly know everyone at some point runs into a wall. Whether it's decision fatigue that just stops progress and pushes your timeline back. And it's not so much important as just rely on AI to do your job. It's more so leaning on them when you need them for support. From that constant pressure, the tight deadlines, the creative roadblocks, and combing through 8 hours of footage and dialogue just to find those little golden nuggets for a 6-minute highlight film. Those things, if you can have a tool that just cuts that in half, I mean, what would you do with an extra 10 hours a week? You know what I mean?
Per wedding, even we've talked to some people that okay, yeah, this has saved me like a day or two. And we've talked to other people. So yeah, that they consider themselves quite fast. And this still saves me like 3 hours. That's huge over the course of a season to be able to free up that much time. And the I don't know, confidence is the right word, but the clarity, I should say, the clarity that you can get of oh, I know what to do now. This is giving me a jumping off point. That if I would have killed for that.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like there's this idea, right, that you have to go through some level of suffering to create great art.
Yeah, you got a tortured artist.
If you're not suffering, you're not really an artist or whatever. So I don't know. I want to talk about that warped mentality behind what it means to make great art, or I guess because for me, I think art born from suffering sure is powerful, but I don't think it's necessarily a requirement for creating something of substance and meaning. And there's just so many paths to it. So yeah, I feel like too it definitely goes in line with what we do as wedding filmmakers and storytelling and whatever we're doing inside the creative pathway. I think looking at tools as a resource instead of as a burden is something we should try to shift our mindset towards. Because, I don't know, I'm sure you probably saw it. I mean, you release something that's disruptive. So of course you're going to see some kind of pushback to some extent, right? I mean, so I was on socials the other day, or not the other day, maybe it was when Plotline was first released. And I don't know, I saw someone post, asking his brides and couples if they wanted him to tell the story or if they wanted Plotline to tell the story. And I don't know, it just got me I felt a little cringy looking at that, to be honest. I just felt like it was a little bit of virtue signaling, wrapped up in what looks like transparency, but functions more as that public performance of purity and in a sense of how a lot of people generally treat AI and honestly function inside the wedding industry, where it's all about optics and appearance. But I don't know. I think the mindset on AI, we should try to shift it. It's not so much if you don't use AI, it's not hey, look at me, I'm doing things the real way. I'm authentic. I don't rely on the shortcuts. I'm better than those who do. And I don't know. I think that's a little disingenuous and unnecessary, because it just creates a lot of rifts in the industry. And I mean, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I mean, to some extent, I get it. I get it. It's, it's AI it's unfamiliar. It's something that you can't always you can't forecast how it's going to be in the future. And the unknown is scary to a lot of people. But I think to some extent, people are missing the point of what these tools are created for. And like you said, it's not doing the edit for you. It's just helping you structure. It's helping you organize and speed up the work that gets in the actual way of creating, that decision fatigue, the overwhelm, the second guessing. And I do think the mindset around AI that's more in a negative perspective comes from that sense of fear of just being replaced, right? Of feeling like you're going to become irrelevant because all these AI tools are just going to do your job for you. And the hard-earned skills that you learned suddenly are leveled by, newbies coming in who are just using better tools. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of irony, with the rejection of AI, because we all use it, whether we like it or not. We're using it every day. We are being told what to buy. We're being told what to watch. We're being told how to get to a certain destination. And, I think that, every day we're scrolling, TikTok, YouTube, we're constantly inundated with algorithms and all of those things. But the second you try to use it in the context of a creative workflow, it's a little vilified, and it's eyes are turning and rolling. And I don't know. I disagree with that stance, because I feel like there's so many benefits to people who are trying to use it in the right way, right? Who are trying to use it to get time back in their day. And, and just trying to level up too. I feel like even someone who is like, relatively new, 2 years into the industry and using these tools, I still think like Plotline is a great learning tool because it gives you the structure. It like you can read the text and like see how it's like spitting out the story. And then that way you're starting to kind of grab those concepts of like, oh wow, it's pulling this and it's paralleling the speech with something from the vowels. And I like love the way that it's like organizing that in a way that I wouldn't have even thought. So there's so many benefits, and I know I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but yeah, that's my mindset towards AI.
I think too, especially in this context within weddings and wedding filmmaking, especially, it's a form of documentary filmmaking. And so we're not necessarily creating anything out of nothing. We are, by its very nature, curating and distilling. That is an extension of what Plotline is doing and what we've built it to do. We want to further distill and curate with you based on your own, as the filmmaker, your guidance. That to me, I think is an important distinction. If you think of AI as it's just going to do everything for me, I mean, sure, yeah, that's problematic. If I'm going to write a novel and I just tell ChatGPT, write me a nice novel, I think that's not great. But in this context of, hey, like be my assistant editor based on my guidance and distill this further for me so I can create a more powerful, more meaningful piece of work. I think that's a tool that we should gravitate towards. And I also think that helping, like AI is still so new that if we can kind of shape it by how we use it early on, instead of just run from it and hope it, like, hide under the covers and hope it doesn't happen, then I think, doing it that way could be like embracing it and helping steer it by how we use it can be a really interesting and powerful thing. And two, like when I think of Plotline, it was kind of like if old documentaries were typically edited via transcript. So like even before editing on a computer was a thing, people would literally write out every single word, put it on cards or index cards and start editing the story that way. That's an extension of what Plotline's doing. It's just doing a bit of the organizing for you as a first pass sort of idea. And I think that's a very natural way of thinking about storytelling, especially in a documentary context, and can be helpful.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you're making, because it just shows that, the creative process is not linear. It's not always going to be a straight line. There's going to be so many ebbs and flows and new, fresh ways to do something. And you look at, probably back when the first painting was created and then the first camera was invented, painters probably looked at cameras as like, oh, you're not making real art, you're cheating. And it is like very similar in how AI is evolving and how we're navigating it. And let's just maybe touch on that for a second. Like how has because you're coming up on, you said 2 decades. I remember my first wedding, and I know how things have changed so dramatically over just the 10 years that 10 plus years that I've been doing it. And so what are things that you've seen in terms of like processes evolving, systems changing, from the way you film to the way you edit, all of those things?
It's been a massive shift, and it's been cool to see the technology catch up to the ideas. Like when we got started, HD was at its infancy. So it was like, I was on a Panasonic camera that was like among the first to record to cards instead of tapes and all this stuff. And I got a whopping 8 gigabyte card I thought I was, rolling in the amount of time I had. I'm like, I got a solid 22 minutes. I'm going to kill this. And so to see the gear, obviously, and how you can make a beautiful image for much less now is wild. What's also really cool is to see the language of filmmaking it's much more accessible and somewhat required. Back in the day, it wasn't necessarily. And same with, I think with that came the attention to storytelling and cinematic storytelling. Because before, when I got started, it was montages purely. Like if you had a soundbite, it was like, congratulations to the married couple. Hey, done. And then with that came, okay, let's really pour into the story and what these films can be. And that's been a big push for us. And with learning how to tell a story visually, with that in weddings comes, how do we assemble the audio in a way that's effective and true to the couple and honest, but also impactful for the viewer. And I'm going on a tangent also.
No, that's great.
Forget what the second part of your question was, or the
No, that's great. I mean, just basically how wedding filmmaking has evolved and changed over the years. And yeah, I mean, it's so true. I mean, it proves the point, art adapts, and the way that we create doesn't matter as much anymore, as long as it's still fulfilling, right? As long as it's still creating something that leaves a strong impact. But it always changes. And, painters feared the camera. Film editors probably feared the nonlinear editing software at times.
Oh, 100%. You'd hear people talk about, like, you got to be sure about a cut when you actually physically splice the film. You're going to be so willy-nilly with your edits on a computer. And now there's like 2 people that still edit on an old movie.
Right. I mean, the same thing, like, cinematographers fearing the digital cameras, like that replacing film stock, designers fearing Photoshopped, all those things. And photographers fearing, like AI imagery creation, which is a valid concern for sure. But yeah, I just think there's so much truth and validity to it, where it's just like, you just have to understand like what it is, how to use it correctly, and just like go at it with an intentional lens and viewpoint. Because artists have always feared the new tool until they mastered it. And so the whole mentality behind if you're using AI tools, you're not a real filmmaker or artist. I don't know. I think that ignores how the creative process has always evolved, right? I think every generation has had access to new tools, and every generation has been criticized by the one before. And so,
and sometimes how I look at it too is like, I'm a big movie nerd, and I think of traditional filmmaking a lot. So I always think about, not all directors are writers. Most famously, people like Steven Spielberg don't write their own stuff, hardly ever. He's like done 3 of his own movies. So you are, as a director, kind of, and I think when we're wedding filmmakers, we are directing the story, the film. But we're not always writing it, because by its nature, we're not. It's, words from others. So if we can look at it more as, I want to be the director, and I need some collaboration with creating the script out of what's been said, I think that can be a really powerful way of looking at it. And because then if you take any ideas that come from that and run with it, and it improves the level of work you're doing, that to me is a huge improvement over being like, I struggle with this. I guess I'll just do I'll open the film with, the officiant welcoming people, some nice drone shots, go into the story that way or whatever. Whereas instead, if you are working with or being a director and working with your script writer or plotline or a tool like it to kind of get the idea flowing, and then elevate your work, to me that's something that's the fact that it can be a reality now is really amazing, as we're all, for the most part, we're all mom and pop shops. We're all either 1-man or 2-man operations typically. And we don't have the luxury of being able to necessarily bring in people to do that sort of thing. Some people do, that's wonderful, but not all of us can. So if we can lean on tools to help us with that, that's really powerful.
We're men and women of many hats when it comes to like wedding filmmaking. And, I always laugh when there's cinematographers and commercial filmmakers who criticize wedding filmmakers as not real filmmakers. And it's just like, I feel like we have so much more responsibilities and like things that we have to learn and, dissect and unpack and, create and to get a finished product that feels like a movie and feels like a really well thought out, impactful story. And I mean, it's true. I mean, I feel like the way that you can grow a business and scale and level up truly is through delegation, but you can't always afford to delegate in a way that it usually requires. And so that's why you have to have tools and resources if you want to truly level up and, get better at the craft. And so I think, for anyone who uses it to, help them to that capacity, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. By all means. Like, I think that's what they're there for. They're there to help you. And, it shouldn't be something that's like vilified and scrutinized to a degree. Now, of course, there are exceptions. There's AI out there that are bad actors. Of course, there's the AI. I don't know if you've seen, I don't know what platform it is. I think it's like Geo or something where you can literally like type in a prompt and it'll like spit out a whole video of like, it's pretty ridiculous. It's kind of crazy how good it's gotten.
It's wild to see how, like I'm sure you've seen the old like Will Smith eating spaghetti videos from 3 years ago. And now it's like, it looks borderline photoreal. You could definitely fool people.
Exactly.
So that is, I understand that. And that's what's interesting. AI gets lumped into that as a whole.
It does. Yeah,
so,
it does.
So it's like, it's going to do everything and eliminate the actual human doing it. And I understand that. Thinking. It's also the branding of AI has been just taken over. Like it used to be called machine learning like 10 years ago, and it was very much a thing. It's just these large language models and ChatGPT and the branding of it just being lumped as this, hey, it's just going to take our jobs and the robot overlords are going to win.
Right.
That to me is problematic. It's not so black and white. And it can be used for good.
Yeah, there is intentionality and with all these different tools and what they're designed for, and using them in the right way to help you achieve an outcome is obviously, I think of Spider-Man. I've been watching like Spider-Man recently. With great power comes great responsibility. Take that, and
Uncle Ben knew what he was talking about.
Use it wisely. He did. That man was wise beyond his years. So, R.I.P. Uncle Ben. I guess like some questions that I'd love to just kind of leave people listening with, like number one, when it comes to Plotline, if you had 10 extra hours a week, or per film because of this tool, how would you use that time? Really think about that. Just think about a world where you like had that extra time, like to really like either spend with family, to kind of decompress, take some time away from the computer, whether it's like also helping you speed up your workflow, help your films feel more structured. I think for me, that's 100% worth it, especially if you had that extra time to really refine the emotion within that film and that story, because that's where it comes to life, through your pacing, through the sound design, through your color, the structure of shots and all of those things. Stories, obviously an important component, but it's not the full piece to the puzzle.
All of the pieces of the puzzle are storytelling. Just laying out what is said isn't necessarily entirely storytelling. So if you can free up, like the process to be like, oh, now that I've got this, I'm going to be much more intentional with this extra time and how I select my shots, how I pace it. I'm going to put a little more time into maybe sound design that I usually rush because I don't have necessarily all that time to pour into that, and in turn create a more impactful film and a more immersive film with sound or whatever it is. I think it can be really cool. That's what it's done for me. Like I'm able to, besides possibly taking more weddings with extra time, I'm also able to be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to really just kind of take my time in this B-roll layout instead of kind of rushing things along like usual.
No, because when you try to do everything all at once, you're only going to do one thing so well, right? So it's like having something to help you, like they do on film sets and everything else. They have so many people designated to certain roles, and so it goes back to that delegation aspect of things, and having that built-in story editor is just absolutely huge for your mental, for your film and the impact that it holds. And so the second thing, if your wedding films felt more like a story instead of like a highlight reel, how do you think that would impact your bookings and your business moving forward? Yeah.
And your knowledge going into the next shoot. You can, if you're kind of thinking, like you were saying earlier about how you can you also learn using Plotline, like you learn why it's telling the story a certain way. And that's very much by design. Like I've gone into weddings now where I'm thinking about the edit differently than how I used to before Plotline. And I'm more intentional with where I'm placing the viewer with the camera. I'm thinking about, oh, if this is a moment that I think is going to be powerful based on my discussions with the couple, I want to shoot it this way to evoke this feeling. And I wasn't always thinking that exact way before Plotline. It just gets that your brain working in a slightly different way, and I think boosts your creativity.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, art has now become really both like human intuition and machine assistance. I mean, that's nothing really new. I mean, we've been doing that for a while now. And so it's, it's like you said, it opens the door to creative possibilities. And it kind of just like eliminates that overwhelm. Because I'm someone who I overthink everything. I see so many different pathways and I can't make that decision because there's too many decisions and I don't know which one is the most impactful. It's like, if you can have that laid out. I mean, for instance, I did a story session with a couple and I used Plotline for that story session. And so when I went into the wedding day, I was a lot more aware of just so different cool things like that were, more impactful for them. I was like, oh, that's a key story element right there. Or that's something that I should capture. And like, I should focus on this right here because this is what they said in their story session. And so there's so many benefits to obviously also the pre-production phase and how Plotline really helps in that regard too, that I thought was like just so valuable.
That's a good point. Like, because I've been talking to people in Canada, this is less popular of a thing, but rehearsal dinners are a very key thing in the US. And there's no stopping you of being, right when you get home from the rehearsal dinner, throwing this into Plotline and can get the juices flowing for what is it going to be, or what themes or motifs are going to come out of those speeches that will aid your storytelling on the actual wedding day. I think that can be such a cool way of doing kind of research beforehand.
It's such a useful tool. And yeah, for anyone listening, if you want to, Mac, you want to just like maybe touch on where they can go to get access to Plotline and
100%. Yeah. So Plotline is plotline.pro. And there you can subscribe. There's a 3-day free trial if you want to jump in and give it a try. And then if you are wanting to sign up, we have a coupon code for everyone listening, Wayward 10, which I'm sure will be in the notes of this show. And you can, subscribe there and give it a try. I think if people just even dip their toes with it and see what it can do, I think they'll be really amazed at how it can help their business and them as a creative filmmaker or storyteller.